So today is week 2 of our 4-week talk on the first 4 lessons. Last week, the thing itself. This week, the way it works. Next week, what it does, and the week after that, how to use it. And as I said before, and I will say again, they are all one. There is only one, so they are really all one. However, in an effort to better understand life for us and God and its operating forces of love and law, Science of Mind has broken it into 2 parts. The first part being the idea of the universal, the truth of what really is, the thing itself, the way it works, what it does, and how to use it. That is the divine consciousness, the eternal energy of all life, the universal, all that is. It is a unity of love and law, and therefore we are each of it. We are each that drop in the ocean. We are each that individualized expression of the one allness that is. And that is the absolute truth. And then the breakdown that Science of Mind gives us so that we can better understand how to work with this power, this law, this presence, is looking at the same idea from an individual standpoint. The idea that allness works for us by working through us. And it does matter how we think, because we each think differently. David and I have become, I would say, experts on understanding when we're not understanding what the other one is saying, that we are each saying the same or similar, but we think differently. So we express.
I think I pretty much know exactly what a woman means when she speaks now.
Right. A part of that is understanding whether you think whole to the parts or parts to the whole. Meaning, do you think from the universal when you're able to understand and feel and experience that unity of all that is, and then your individual part or role or expression in that? Or do you think from yourself out into all that is? That's parts to the whole. So individually speaking, we are the universal expressing through us individually. If that weren't true, how else could we live? Our thought, therefore, and our emotion is the use that we make of the universal, whether we use it consciously or unconsciously. And it's always best to use it consciously. That's a part of the process, is getting to the point where we can dig up or see beneath to those ideas that are rooted in our belief system unconsciously, that are still playing out today, and that we want to look at consciously so we can make the change.
When we take a deep look at the mechanics of divine operation, when we take a spiritual perspective of what's happening in life and the things around us, we find there isn't really any mechanical activity going on. Everything occurs at the level of energy. Now I look around here, I see there may some other people that were like me when I was a child. When I was a child, I took my toys apart to see how they worked. And through a process of reductionist deconstruction, or it might have been destruction, dissection of the toys to their elemental parts, I discovered how the toys worked by observing how all the individual parts supported the overall process of the toy. And I soon found out the hard way. There were some parts I could not take apart because I would not be able to put them back together again. Things like batteries and electric motors and the toy robots and electric trains and remote control cars were beyond my technical ability to dissect. And I had to resolve myself to the fact that those fundamental pieces were fundamental life source pieces. That's what I considered them to be. They couldn't survive my dissection. But when I could put all the pieces back together, the toy would work. And if I handed it off to one of my brothers, it would work for them exactly the same way it did for me, because the toy followed the mechanical laws with which it was designed, as long as all the parts were there in the right places. If we break down a plant, we will find its fundamental life source is in the seed. And if we break down the seed, the life force, although it carries all the genetic life of the plant, will disassemble and cease to maintain its integrity, and the life energy will be lost. And in quantum science, on the other hand, we find that when we break things down to the atomic level, we eventually will no longer get smaller pieces, we get energy, atomic energy. That proves that to us that life is not mechanical, it is energy. Energy is the ground of all being. It's the source of all that we are. So now that I'm older, I've studied enough to know how batteries work through chemical reaction. I know how electric motors work through electromagnetic energy. And I have a basic understanding of how atomic energy works. And I also have a basic understanding of how thought energy works to manifest our desires. All of these things operate under natural law. I don't have to know exactly what electricity is. I don't have to know what electromagnetic energy is, or chemistry, or atomic energy, or cosmic energy at all. I don't have to know what any of those are. I just have to know how they work according to natural law, and then how to use them to manifest my personal desires.
So as David was talking, I was thinking about how it's a process. He progressed. And how did he progress through that to get to where he is today? In that process was knowledge. Attaining new knowledge that helps us. And that's what we do with law. When something isn't working, we look at what it is within us that needs to shift to be in alignment with the law so that we do have that which we desire. It is done unto you as you believe. And so those unconscious ideas are ideas that we don't want to believe if they are not creating in the way that we desire to create. I believe those words, that one sentence, is probably a summation of Jesus' entire teaching and philosophy. It is done unto you as you believe. There are multiple stories and ideas throughout the Bible of that one statement supports. In this writing this week, The Way It Works, from Ernest Holmes, he has a subtitle called The Seed of Perfection is Hidden Within. And you know, this year that especially spoke to me. That seed of perfection is within each and every one of us. So we sing a lot of songs in New Thought, and I love songs, I love singing, but in New Thought, they aren't sung in a lot of places. They're sung mainly in New Thought churches. And a lot of them have been written by New Thought writers, and they are basically affirmations. So as we're singing, if we're thinking, truly embodying those words, we are up-leveling our thought processes, if you will. One of the songs that comes to mind for me is one you're familiar with, I love myself as I am, and still I want to grow. We all want to grow. We were talking about that earlier before service today, that we are each in a place, a point in life where we're still growing, we're still gaining that knowledge and using it to create our own lives. I remember the first time I sang that song, it was at a workshop, and as soon as I said, oh good, a song, and I got it, and we sang, I love myself, and I thought to myself, are you kidding me right now? How egotistical. I had not developed yet to that point that idea of loving myself. Well, I bet you can guess that workshop taught me a whole lot. The importance of loving yourself, truly loving yourself, and showing yourself by how you live your life, what is around you, that you are important enough to love yourself. God is perfection. God is all. Therefore, at the original life of each one of us is perfection, that seed of perfection within. It lies within our nature, our truest nature, our highest nature. It is our spirit, it is our soul. Albeit, at times, it is hidden from our sight. So, science of mind, someone told me, has been watered down. And I kind of had a funny look because as my kids say, Mom, everything's on your face. Whatever's going on, we know what you think and feel. And so I was like, what do you mean by that statement? And I was told, well, too many people don't get the real intent. So I just allowed that because, yes, I had resistance to that. And so I just allowed it to be present with me. And it came up for me this week in looking at the way it works. And so sometimes we just don't live up to the way it works. It's not that we've watered it down. It's that we haven't acquired the knowledge or we haven't found the right way to work that law, to create that which we desire in our life. So I'll raise my hand. I sometimes fall short of the mark. I wouldn't say at all that it's because I've watered down science of mind, but rather because I'm that seed in progress. And so are you. We are that perfection within. And we are practicing and learning every day. And I don't know about you, but for me, every time I get something wrong and I get it, I am able to do it differently. So what happens is that I'm working it, and however I'm working it, it works accordingly. I receive accordingly to the way that it works. So when it doesn't appear to work the way we want it to work, we get to look at the use we are making of it. That is the way it works. And it can be a process. And I would indeed say that if you are up for it this week, pages 36 and 37, that's where you will find the seed within of perfection. The seed of perfection is within. It's a short reading, and it's well worth the read.
Ernest Holmes says, we are thinking, willing, knowing, conscious centers of life. We are surrounded by, immersed in, and there is flowing through us a creative something. Call it what you will. The sum total of all our thought, will, purpose, and belief creates a tendency in this law that causes it to react to us according to the sum total of that belief. The law can only work for us by working through us, and it only works according to how we use it, as Deborah was saying. As I was saying earlier, because I have a basic understanding of some basic laws of mechanics, I can often fix things when they break. Because I have a basic understanding of plant biology, I can plant a garden and harvest beautiful and wonderful things to eat. Because of a basic understanding of spiritual law, I can shift my beliefs to manifest everything that I want, that I desire to experience in my life. And so can you. Our mental energy is intimately aligned with universal and cosmic energy. In fact, it is one with it. Our mental energy is cosmic and universal energy. We don't have to wire into it or plug into it because we can never be disconnected. We are hardwired to the universe. We are hardwired to God. We don't even have to say anything. We won't have to send an email or a text or a Twitter or a fax or a smoke signal or a Morse code. Don't even have to do an interpretive dance. We don't even have to get on our knees, fold our hands, and close our eyes and say a prayer. All we have to do is hold a thought. Mental energy is causative. It mingles with the energy of the universe and then interacts with our environment. That's how simple it is, and that's the way it works.
Yes. So I'm going to share a quote from Ernest Holmes. It's a little bit lengthy, and here it is. The science of mind is not a special revelation of any individual. It is rather the culmination of all revelations. We take the good wherever we find it, making it our own insofar as we understand it. The realization that good is universal and that as much good as any individual is able to incorporate in his life is his to use is what constitutes the science of mind and spirit. Those are some powerful words for us. First of all, he's telling us that the writing of the science of mind is not a special revelation of any individual. I suspect he was speaking about himself, but he goes on to say it's a culmination of all revelations, which to me means that he realizes that he studied and read and practiced and observed until he had accumulated this idea that he could put into words to share with us and anyone else who's interested about the way, what God is and the way God works. He goes on then to say that we can take whatever good we find wherever we find it. That to me means look for the good. Always be looking for the good. Don't be looking for the bad to occur. Look for the good, because you'll find it, even in some of our darkest situations. Because honestly, I've yet to meet someone who hasn't had a dark situation. But I have met a lot of people who have overcome the darkness. Yes? So we can relate. And I think somehow when we get that, we can look for the good in whoever or whatever we're looking at. Because, as he says, the good is universal. It's really all that is. And so we can only take as much or receive or experience as much of that good as we are able to incorporate into our lives. My beautiful, wonderful spiritual family, that means the way we speak, the way we act, our facial expressions, even mine. I'm really good with that one. I learned it at a very early age. So, I have a friend who I've been friends with for a lot of years. And a long time ago, she had a situation in her life that just kept cropping up. And whenever we'd get together, I'd hear about it over and over and over and over. to the point where I decided I'd give her some of my sage advice. And I said, just let go. But she didn't. And she'd try something else, and then she'd tell me how that fell flat on its face. And I would say, just let go. And she wouldn't. And then one day she went on a cruise with a friend of hers. It was a friend that she'd grown up with. She hadn't seen her and didn't know her for years and years. Well, she knew her, but she hadn't had contact with her for years and years. They went on a cruise together. She came back, we got together, and she said, oh my gosh, that situation is totally gone from my life. She said, when I was on the cruise, my friend said to me, just let go. Yeah. We hear the message when we're ready to hear the message. For her, she received a great gift. The gift of letting go and the gift of no longer suffering out of her own thought. But truly, I personally believe that I received the greater gift. Because the greater gift is exactly what we're talking about here today. A deeper understanding of the way it works. If I want something in my life, and I bat it back and forth like that wiffle ball, you can play by yourself, I'm not going to get that which I thought I wanted, a home run, because I've got it tethered to the rope. I can't bat it back and forth, say, yes I do, but I'm not showing I do, yes I do, but I'm not showing I do, and expect it to play itself out the way I want it. I have to stick to it. I have to believe that it is possible so much. I have to believe that God is this goodness, this truth, and that I am of it, therefore heir to exactly what I want. And I have to stay the path, and stay the path. And if it takes 10 human years, or however long, I have to stay the path. Otherwise, I've told the universe I changed my mind. So, Ernest Holmes tells us that we will find a better God when we have arrived at a higher standard for man. That's holding ourselves to a standard in the way that we live, in the way that we express, in the way that we interact, in the way that we think, that is equal to the seed of perfection that lies within. We are already that, but I think sometimes we forget. And so most of us, or many of us, were here. So the poem that I gave you a copy of, you can go ahead and get that. I'm probably going to share it and hand it out for a couple weeks. If you didn't get one, there are more back there. I'm sorry did I not give you one. They're right back on the counter there.
I got you.
Yep.
Okay.
You want one too. So most of us chose something when we did the releasing ceremony, and I had shared this poem last week, and I think it's a really good one for us to take in, to affirm deeply each week for a while. And I decided you probably needed a handout instead of seeing it up here, so that you can take it home and know it for yourself. And I know a few people that saw it out there on their way in. We're pointing a specific part of the poem that's meaningful for them. And that's okay too. Say that one part over and over to yourself. You don't have to say the whole thing. But let's read it and share it together. I shall keep the promise that I have made to myself. I shall never again tell myself that I am poor, sick, weak, nor unhappy. I shall not lie to myself anymore, but shall daily speak the truth to my inner soul, telling it that it is wonderful and marvelous, that it is one with the great cause of all life, truth, power, and action. I shall whisper these things into my soul until it breaks forth into songs of joy with the realization of its limitless possibilities. Thank you, Ernest Holmes. So it is.